We're not starting in 15, or we're starting.
No, we can start in 15.
Minutes. The black and the handsome man. And so it's handsome.
I may need your. Sure. But
Oh, I think it's a worker. Oh, I mean. I just graduated. Started my job Monday. Oh, wow.
No, it's her.
Yeah.
We need it. The time wasn't over, thanks for chatting in about.
And then oh,
You're picking it up. You kick it off. I wasn't listening, so I don't know. They just start talking. Yeah, you probably get over. It's not too bad.
see how many we got in Tulsa. All right. Hi, Dancy. Hi, Tommy. You guys can unmute. You guys are participating here. I turned on my audio. Everyone else on Zoom will not do that. So that way we don't get an echo. Very good. But I will. Yeah, thanks. I'm not going to watch your chat. So if you raise your hand, I probably won't see it. All right. I think this is an OK Coders and Techlahoma event, huh? Yeah. So we're what I wanted to do this year is just I'm probably going to cover or touch on some things that a lot of you already know today. Because we've all had jobs, probably. I don't know if everybody here's had a job, but if you haven't had no jobs, you might still know because you've had school or classes or something, right? So the point is that if you don't know, who's going to tell you, right? And so we're going to cover what some people call soft skills, right? And there are some things it takes to succeed at your first tech job or your first time at a company after it's not your first tech job. I got my first tech job when I was 17. I was at my summer after, so to date myself, I've been in tech 28 years. And so been a little while. And I've had a lot of tech jobs and I've hired a lot of tech people, and some of them were more successful than others, right? So I thought it would be helpful to, your entry into a company, what does it take to do a good job, right? So I'm going to ask you guys questions. So if you're in Tulsa, you just got to unmute and speak up. If you're here, you can just speak up just like they can, except you don't have to unmute first. And I'm going to have you think about a question first. So when you start a new position, what's your goal?
Make money.
To make money.
To keep your spot in the company, to contribute, as value to hopefully not let go.
To keep your spot, right? That's like minimum, right? And then also I heard you say to contribute and to provide value, whatever that means. What does that mean? Depends on the job. Good. So it's a discovery. You're not going to know exactly, right? So if you want to be a contribution or provide value, you got to find a way to do that. Anybody else? What's your goal?
I mean, it kind of depends on your experience level, right? So like someone fresh out of college, there might be different expectations versus someone who is more senior, you bring in, you expect them to hit the ground running, but either way, I'd say one really important goal is to really learn the processes of the company and the business and learn how things are done. I don't know if it's the primary goal, but it's certainly one.
You have that, how do things work here? Yeah, that's good, that's a good one to keep doing after your first 90 days, because things don't stay the same either, right? Yeah, so he said, to learn how things work here, to learn the processes, right? And how things are done, right? Yeah, okay.
Growth.
Okay, to grow. Do you think everybody has the same goals? Right, so this, I can't tell you how to reach all your goals. I can give you some practices, right? But it's forming your own goals is part of it. You know, you're gonna identify your goal and think about your goals at the company, right? What I wanted to add to the picture when you're starting your job is it's not just a job. You're entering a community, whether you're in a new city, if you're in a new industry, right? If you're at a new company, it's a big company, you have, whether you like it or not, some kind of professional reputation, right? And you're walking in with one, which is whatever people already know about you, and everything you do adds to that professional reputation, right? So your actions are creating a perception of who you are with all the different people you interact with. That's not just your boss, that's not just your coworkers, it might be your clients, it might be suppliers, it might be customers of the business that you work with. So every little thing you do adds one more little coin to the piggy bank, right? This is who I am, this is who I am. And it's not like permanent, but it does add up over time. And in a community like Oklahoma, I have found, I've been in this tech community since 2003, and you'd be surprised who you bump into. You work here for 18 months, and you work with and this person works for you. And there's a guy I hired when I worked at Sonic who's now in charge of the entire state of Oklahoma IT department, right? He worked for me, now I certainly work for him on that project, right? So you know, you never know, you work with somebody at this place, what's gonna be like when you work with them at the next place. So you're playing a long game with your professional reputation, right? So think about the people you have worked with so far. This might be good for notes because we're gonna lead to something at the end. If you have a place to take notes. Who have you worked with? Now, I'm not only thinking, I'm thinking about the star players, right? The people you worked with, you're like, wow, right? There's some people that you have an impression of that were just like A players, right? And there's some people that you worked with, maybe you have a different impression, right? So get a couple of them in your mind of who you've already worked with before. Okay. What do you remember about them? You don't have to name names. Actually, probably don't if it's a bad thing.
How that made you feel, how they were competent.
How they made you feel, and you said how
They're competent.
whether or not they were competent. Or are you thinking like they are competent?
No, if they are or not.
Yeah,
You know, it's kind of establishing that reputation, because I think you can't, like you said, you can change your reputation, but it's a lot easier if you set a good reputation for yourself from here on out than if you set a bad reputation, you're gonna be climbing out of that hole for a long, long time.
yeah. That was where your starting point is for the next job. Your reputation, it's got momentum.
Or even internal, you know, we do a lot of, you know, first 90-day evaluations of people, and if you were, you know, kind of struggling, I mean, it's just, you'll have a lot more eyes on you for a lot longer.
If you were underperforming.
Versus if you come in and you're a rock star, they're like, all right,
Yeah.
a lot of projects, get, you know.
Yeah. Well, let's hold on to that performance one. We're going to performance next. But I want you to remember the things that stand out in your memory are not the entirety of what that person did ever in their life, right? You had these few number of interactions with this person. Maybe they were maybe you were not exactly on their team, or maybe you worked really closely on their team for a period in their life, and you don't, whatever was going on at home, right? Some people, you know, maybe they have good times and bad times in their career, but you know, you only saw this, like you have a spot, and you're piecing together what you think of that person. So the way you are remembered with all the people in your professional network is based on the same incomplete, spotty information. Right, so, you know, this talk is going to be about a gap, right? There's going to be a gap between what you would like and what is, right? And then there's a question of like, do I You know, if I do nothing, what's gonna happen? If I do nothing, what's gonna happen with that gap? It could get, well, it depends on your dreams, right? You could, if you get smaller, it's worse, right? Because then like, I give up, forget it, I'm just gonna like live with it, right? But so that the gap is the distance between your ambition, like what you want in your life, and what is, and what's gonna happen if you don't do anything. Right? And so what I want to get into with you guys today is, what do I do with that gap? How do I choose? Because it's all by choice. Right? Nobody can make you. Right? This is about what you're going to do in the gap between what you want and what you have. Right? So we're going to start with the impression you're going to make. You can have an automatic impression on people. We're going to anyway, right? Or you could like think about it. Right? What impression would I like to make on the people I work with? So when I take a new job, there's some questions I need to ask now that I didn't need to ask yesterday. Who are the people here? Right? It's up to you to find out. Somebody's going to tell you, right? You're going to walk into a job. Here's your boss. This is your coworkers. And you've got a list of like 4 people or 6 people, right? And you could just live with that. Or you could go find out who the people are and what they do. And you're going to have more information, right? And with more information, you have more power to do something about the information. So you can take time when you first get the job to make an inventory, make a roster. Who are these people that work here? And what do they do? And what do they think that I do? And this is where the reputation starts to get created, right? Because they're going to have expectations, and you didn't make those expectations. We hired a new teller at the bank. So they have expectations that you're going to do whatever a teller does, right? It's not going to be a full picture of your personality, right? It's just like, I hired a new sales rep for my car lot. So that's what he's supposed to do, right? But you're going to step into it, and now you're a real human being. And you have a whole, so you're living into those expectations, and then they're finding out, well, who really is this person? Right? Which is a very 3D full color picture, right? And that's what's going to form the memories and build that reputation over your career, right? So it's up to you to understand what they do, right? And it's also up to you to understand what they think you do. And with that information, you have a chance to actually, there's a tech thing, right? You guys are in OK Coders. I don't know if I want to say it exactly like you can computer program your life, but with information, you can do some engineering, right? And so that's what you're engineering on. The perceptions of the people you work with, because they're going to walk away with memories, and 5 years later, you're going to interview with that guy for a job, and he's going to remember whatever he remembers about where you worked this time, right? It's a long game, right? So I got to move into performance. So what does it mean? And I need a few ideas here, because there's not one right answer to most of the questions I'm going to ask in this whole thing. There's many right answers, okay? What does it mean to do a good job?
Make deadlines.
Make your deadlines. Yeah.
Find out what metrics you're being measured on, what they define as good.
Find out what they think is good. Yeah. What do you mean by what metrics? Like, for example.
That's why I've changed jobs a few times over the past few years, and really, I've been in IT for 25 years, so I understand what good is, but what good at one company could look different at another company. And so versus kind of guessing or doing what was good at another place, I asked my boss specifically, like, define good, like, if you're in a help desk, it's closure rate or closure times, or
Okay.
if it's on coding, it's, they had problems with code quality, and so it's code reviews, or, you find where the pain points are, and then, or what metrics they're measuring on, and you try to work, it's work smart, not hard,
You're looking for things they care about.
Yes.
Like dimensions, like is it timely work? Is it documentation? Is it code quality? Right? Is it is it test coverage? You can come up with some technical stuff, or it might be something like, is it on time performance to meetings? Is it what you wear when you show up in the morning? Is it, do you come in, do you answer the Teams messages on Sunday night when there's a deployment problem or not? And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong to any of this, but it's good to understand what they think is good and bad. Right? And whether you agree with it, that's, is this a place I want to work, is a question you can answer later, right? But like that, it's not right or wrong what they expect. It's just information, right? And you're looking for metrics.
I'll also add, I think it's multidimensional too, like you have your direct boss, so they're gonna be a big person to know what's good in their eyes, but that boss probably has a boss or
people adjacent or, beside of you, so you're kind of playing multiple people's games so that you have that perception or that reputation, across your peers or, or multiple people.
I keep summarizing because there's the Tulsa
Yeah.
folks. So I'm gonna try to, I think what I heard is like, there's skip level, right? My boss works for somebody who expects what he expects is just probably not the same thing my boss expects from me, right? So my performance might have something, a different interpretation 2 levels up, right? I might be doing great for my boss, but maybe that guy doesn't think I'm anything, right? Or the other way around, and that's rough. If I'm probably more likely to make the mistake of going 2 levels up and what he cares about, and my boss is gonna feel ignored. Right? And that's not a good reputation, right? So you gotta watch what your own proclivities are. That's that gap, right? Yeah. What else? What else does it mean to do a good job?
I think it's always learning, like always learning, even with what you were saying, like figuring out what they want. That's part of learning, right? It's coming in and having an open mind. I mean, I know I don't know everything. I've learned a lot, but you can teach me something. Somebody here can teach me something. I can always learn from somebody.
So always learning is part of doing a good job, not just meeting the expectation, but being better able at the end of it. That you can do more of, well, what do you learn?
A lot of things, you can learn what that person is looking for, or you can learn tricks and trades. If I can spend, 4 hours with you, do you speed me up by 25%?
Yeah. So sometimes it's in the business what they have planned out for me to learn, and sometimes it's kind of out here on a Saturday at OK Coders where you didn't have to go, but here you are, right? So sometimes you go on your own voluntary learning. I have done a lot of that, and I don't always stay on topic either. Yeah, Josh.
I'd say, care, be excited. That's like a really big thing is being positive within a company and then feeding off each other's energies and stuff. So caring about what you're doing, not just dragging your feet and stuff. And of course, there's a lot of things that make, you do a good job, but I think you have to at the foundation, at least care and be excited about what it is you're doing. And then within that, you're going to be more ambitious, go the extra mile, take initiative where you think you should take initiative. And that's kind of what I have to add right now.
So Carrie, yeah, so what I got is doing a good job. I don't know if you said it required, it certainly is going to be expanded by caring about what you're doing and having it matter to you. And then I also heard something about taking initiative, which I think is probably like you're saying, you're probably going to take more of it when it matters to you, when you care. And what do you do when you don't care? Do you just like make yourself care, or?
I think you're in the wrong place if you don't care. And that's like something you need to figure out yourself, because you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing the organization or the team that you're working with a disservice if you walk in and don't care. So
get out of there. Yeah.
everyone's gonna do what's best for them, but
Yeah.
I think, being around like a group of individuals that are passionate about what they're working on and care, then they're more likely to do a good job
Yeah.
than a group of individuals that don't care.
That's definitely the kind of team I'd like to be on, where everybody seems to care about what we're doing. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna add another, I'm gonna surprise you with some of these questions. Because we're talking about performance and meaning performance, like I wrote some notes here, like what I mean by performance is the degree to which your intentions become reality. Right, and that's the gap again, right? Because it's not reality yet, or you wouldn't have a job to do. So I plan on this code going live next March and having 1,000 people log into the app. So does that come true or not? So that's performance, and it might be 800 people, and it's not bad performance, but it's not what you set out to do. So there's going to be a gap. The bigger you dream, the bigger the gap's going to be, and the more chance you're not going to make it, right? So that's what I mean by failure too. You see how there's nothing. Well, have you had any experiences like that where you set out to do something and you didn't do it?
Yeah.
What did that mean about you?
It means what you define it to me.
And I think failure is also, I think there's a lot to be learned on how you react to the failure. For instance, on my team, I try to have an innovative culture, which means you're gonna push the envelope, which means at times you are gonna fail. But it's how you fail. Like there's certain things we can't fail. Like we have change management, we have regulations. we can't fail in most spaces because auditors will smack us around. People get fired or written up for that kind of stuff. So there's certain things that can't be failed on, but pushing the envelope and trying something that isn't successful. It can be innovative if you kind of walk that tightrope, because then, okay, we tried this didn't work. Now we know, okay, half of that demographic's not gonna be profitable for us. We now know that. And sometimes you learn your best lessons from failure. It's your second, pass around and things like that. So you have to understand your culture. You have to understand the things you can't fail on, because like regulation things you can't fail on, or in a hospital, someone's licensed state, you can't fail, on that kind of thing, or things like that. But you gotta have to kind of define that in your innovative culture and your propensity for risk and all those things.
I love that you brought in culture. So you have a culture where there's some failures that are, well, you're saying you can't fail. I am gonna say you can always fail, but those consequences are not acceptable, right? Right? So failure is, so there's a culture there where everybody knows that, right? So if somebody does, I ever tell you about the time I took the entire Sonic production database down at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday? Probably not. Well, you don't know me. I did. And nobody could order food at all the Sonics in the whole country. You'd be surprised how resourceful those store managers are, though. They kept the business running, but I broke it because I was just re-imaging the QA database, and guess what? It was pointed at. Why is this taking so long? Oh. I stayed late that day. So there's consequences. There's consequences. So failure does happen. So what does it mean about you? If it means nothing, I'll put you, but I don't think there's a nothing answer, by the way, because you can screw up. It means something was not right in the way you were working. Can't mean nothing about you, right? Go ahead, Josh.
So talking about failure, like I'm a big believer in that it's the quote, "I have not failed. I just found 10,000 ways that it didn't work." I think we never truly fail unless you give up. You just and you learn something every time. So like the word personally, like a belief of mine is you never fail. You learn. You fail though, I guess. Like I don't give up on something, but if you give up on it, then you fail. So that's I kind of wanted to talk about failure in general.
Yeah, failure. There's a quitting.
Really negative about that, right? It's like, oh, what I tried didn't work. It's like it's not a failure.
I think every time I come up short from a goal, there's an opportunity to give up on the goal right then, right? It's like, do I want to re-choose? What does that goal need to look like? If I didn't make it here on time to give this talk, and you're all sitting here wondering what's going to happen, right? Then I could say, oh, well, I missed it. Or I could think of something else, right? That, I could plan on doing some other way of what I was. So there's a new choice to learn from the failure, right? About how I operate. And then what am I going to do with this commitment? Right. Yeah. So failure is not permanent until you quit. Yeah, I like that.
We also like in failures, if we put a project out, we do a retrospective on it. And so we will evaluate and bring all the people in, even adjacent teams in, and discuss the failure, and then figure out why we fail, kind of reverse engineer it. And lots of times, like when you determine the root cause of the failure, that can become a policy or a checklist or a best practice or a procedure or something like that to prevent that failure in the future as well.
So the way you respond to the failure is, well, it sounds like blame is not there yet, right? But there's an analysis.
Well, and we also try not to have a blame culture, because if you're very punitive on failures, then you then stifle innovation, because then people are afraid to innovate.
No one's going to do anything.
I've been in cultures where we've rewarded failures because it, takes you to the next level.
But as long as you don't just reward the failure and move on, you do something to learn from the failure.
That's the retrospective.
Active, the retrospective.
You put a policy or procedure, a checklist, a second set of eyes, code review, whatever that looks like. Yes.
Yeah. Growth. Yeah. Growth as as a team, as an organization. So your performance is not all I wanted to ask about. Now, I also wanted to see what you thought about others' performance that you work with. You ever been let down? What's that like? He pointed out that my wife and sister were like, yeah. Oh man. It's frustrating when you get let down, when someone else fails.
what they need to do, project you work on.
Cause hey, we were doing this together. Where'd you go, dude?
Yeah.
Right? What happened? Right? And then how they respond to their failure as in like, I'm done with this versus getting in it with you, right? So that's part of, you see how there starts to be a team culture, right? And people are certainly going to remember those moments because you are remembering those moments about right now about somebody who failed, right? And you're going to all fail a lot of times. So having a strategy about how you're going to relate to people in the failure is going to, that's a part of your professional reputation, right? That's part of what people are going to remember about who you are. Yeah, so good. Oh, I had one more. Yeah, we just did that one. Responsibility is the it's above and beyond expectations. So I want you to think of a couple of because I don't know if you want that. I am assuming that part of the professional reputation you'd like to have is a responsible person. I'm not sure it is. I don't have to make you want that, but right. But it's kind of important if I'm forming a company that I'm going to have responsible people in the company to me. So I put it in the presentation, right? So if you think about a couple of people you think of as responsible, how do they operate? Yeah. They communicate well.
They're honest about their failures.
They're honest about failures.
They do what they say they're gonna do,
They do what they say they're going to do. Yeah.
and then they do the right thing even when no one's looking, you know, I mean, that's another big thing.
They do the right thing even when no one's looking. No excuses. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Every excuse just makes people say, really? Like, I'm waiting for the end of that. Right, yeah. They remember the excuses. Right? Here. So when you take responsibility for something, there's a moment of that, right? Where there's a transition. I go from talking to Emily, if you're on Emily, about interns and having them be successful in their new jobs to saying, okay, I'll do a talk next year about it at Tech. I'm now responsible, right? There was a state change, right? I crossed the line. So when you take responsibility for something, what changes?
That person is taking ownership and accountability for whatever tasks it is or project.
Are you thinking so he said the person's taking accountability and ownership of the task or project. Yeah. Are you thinking whose head is that in? The person's head, or the rest of the other people? Like, who knows about that?
Well, the person that's taking responsibility would certainly know that.
I sure did. Yeah. I got up this morning at 6 o'clock. I'm like, let me work on my slides. Like, yeah, it's right. Yeah. What happens in everybody else's mind? He said you can admit your shortcomings. I hear what, so I didn't mean it that way. That's a very valid interpretation of the question, though. What I think you're thinking, like, I took responsibility for something going wrong, right? It already went wrong, and I'm saying that's mine, right? Yeah, and then people are like, "Oh, good, somebody's doing something about it," right? Yeah, I was thinking like taking responsibility for a commitment, right? But yeah, that's absolutely true. When you take responsibility for something going wrong, you are making a commitment that you're going to do something to correct it.
You can also
Yeah.
do something that you can take responsibility for too many things. And now you're carrying everything on your back. Yeah, business owners definitely want to know, but, you know, because you didn't delegate well, or once again, your responsibility is to delegate that. And if you're just taking everything on because you're avoiding hiring good people, or, you know, the things like that, you can go the opposite way.
It's possible to take responsibility for too much, and then what's the results going to be? A whole bunch of failure. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's why I called it taking responsibility. I can't see my notes here, but I had this whole quote about it. Nobody can make you take responsibility. It's a choice, always a choice. Nobody can give you a responsibility. They can say they're doing that. Right? I tell my kid, all right, you're washing the dishes tonight, and they're like, okay, Dad. right? They gotta agree, right? It's their responsibility only after they accept it, right? There's a choice to say, that's mine, you know? So that change, now it's in my world. Now it's something I have to carry until I let it go, right? So people are gonna, let me tell you about We Dream and Okay. It's a conference coming on in October. And we had I'm involved in the Salesforce community in town, and there's a bunch of different groups. And everybody's like, we should do this conference, we should do this conference. And we're talking to people who are like, all right, we'll give you some money. All right, we'll give you some speakers. All right, we'll give you a room. Everybody's trying to throw resources in, but nothing's happening. And I finally realized, oh, nobody's owning this. And so I raised my hand. Now I'm in charge of it. And now everybody else changed. All the other people involved are like, okay, good. Which part can I do? And I'll be in charge of the speakers, and I'll be in charge of the sponsors, and I'll be in charge of the room. I don't have to do anything. I mean, I have to do all the things everybody else drops on the floor. But because I stepped up and said, this is my thing, everyone else got into motion and looked for their place. And I sent out a meeting invite, and they all come to the meeting for no reason except I said, I'll be what did I say to the guy, to the group? I said, okay, I'll be the neck to choke. Is what you just kind of you have to communicate to them that it's mine now. And then it's not theirs, but they want to help, right? That's what happens when you take responsibility. I think another important element that I want in my professional reputation is respect. I don't know, you guys, maybe, am I the only one? Or I don't, is that important to anybody?
Yes.
I think it's important to Techlahoma. I don't remember if we have written values that include it, but I think so. We have a code of conduct anyway. Involves respect. Let's start with respect for yourself. I credit my sister for this one. I didn't have it in the slides. What tells you? There's clues, right? That someone respects themselves.
Confidence.
Confidence?
Not set boundaries.
They-
Saying yes to showing something.
They know how to set boundaries. Ooh, that's a deep one. I could have had a whole slide for the boundaries. But I don't know if this would be the same presentation. Yeah, but it tells you that they respect themselves because they say no, or because they say this is it, no more. Yeah,
I think the rituals or their habits says a lot about a person. If you're showing up, 1 minute before 9 o'clock, and everybody else is there 10-15 minutes early.
Yeah.
It says a lot about you.
yeah,
In my opinion, like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so, if you continue that, one time, it's one thing, but if that's who you are, then your projects are probably gonna show up late. You're probably gonna show up late when it comes time for the big meeting too, right?
So how you do in the little things, especially I heard, I don't know if Tulsa heard, the rituals and habits that somebody displays, they tell you something about how they're gonna do in the big things. Right, so if they're showing up 3 minutes late on, Friday after 4th of July, what's gonna happen on the big meeting the next week?
Yeah, building on that, I'd say they take care of themselves.
Yeah, do they take care of themselves?
And that can be there's your room look like. Do you fold your laundry or throw it on the table? Do you leave it there for weeks? Do you practice good hygiene? So like a lot about presentation, but if you're not taking care of yourself, then
Well, it communicates
showing
something.
that you're not respecting your body, mind, soul, whatever.
So the way you keep yourself is your hygiene and your tidiness, and probably your car and your bedroom. And does anybody have, you're thinking about, oh, I'm not perfect. Anybody about that? Yeah. Yeah, I have a little dent on the back of my car, and I keep waiting to, next month I'm gonna go, because I think it's gonna cost me like $900. I was like, oh, but every time I walk by it, I'm like, what does that say to people, right? So there's always gonna be, you're never gonna be perfect, right? But what do you do about that? I guess you could give up, let your hair grow out, show up at work in pajamas, right? We all work from home. You ever leave your camera off? Huh? I go to these meetings, there's 2 people with the camera on, including me, right? Why? right? What does that say to people, right?
Culture too.
What do you mean it's culture too? Yes.
So I've worked in places that, no one turned their cameras off, and I mean, I think it showed in the culture, and then I worked in a place during COVID where everyone was remote and cameras were required, and it changed the culture, you know? And I know all the introverts and all those, like, oh, I hate that, but it was just, we worked different and we operated different by just having that
Yeah,
community and seeing someone face to face, and even in like you're in an hour meeting, if you don't have your camera off, we're all guilty of this. If I don't have my camera on, because no one else does, then I only listen to the parts that I need to, or I'm waiting for my name to be heard. Whereas if you're on camera, you're just more involved, more in tune,
Yeah.
things like that.
and there's something about meeting participation there with the, not just the camera on, but the tuning in, where we're respecting people's time.
Yeah.
Like that, there's a level of respect if you don't care, if you just drone on up here about some odd thing or whatever, and you guys are all sitting here waiting for me to get to the next slide, right? That's not respecting your time. That's not showing you that I value you all coming here and listen to this talk. And you can hold it at a high regard or a low regard, moment to moment. This is not like, well, I'm guilty of that. I had my camera off at the last meeting. Okay, what are you gonna do at the next meeting then? You know? And if you know you're gonna turn your camera on, how are you gonna get ready for that meeting?
I definitely don't want to talk.
Like, we have a couple spots in our house where we go to do meetings because we know what's behind us isn't completely embarrassing, right? You know what I mean? You've got those meeting spots, but if you don't turn your camera on, whatever, I'll just like post up on my bed with my laptop, right? I'm not participating in the meeting the same way, and we're not gonna have the same result as the team. Ooh, I got it. I got it.
Yeah, the no camera stuff drives me personally batty. Like, we're all in this room, we all can see each other. Like, I can't put on the invisibility. And so it's like, if people don't put on their cameras, it like tells me like, are you even there? Like, are you even listening, watching, partaking?
Yeah,
What's going on? Like, when you're out in the world, people see you.
yeah.
And now with like this bunch of tech, it's just like, well, turn on my webcam.
So it's like you called it an invisibility
I'll always
cloak.
tell people like, please turn on your webcams, especially if I'm meeting them for the first time. I've had people like try to meet me for the first time and they don't turn on their webcams. Like, that's telling me like
Who am I meeting?
a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think of it like an invisibility cloak. You're actually invisible. It's more like a paper bag on your head.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
nice to meet you.
I have a great, last summer I interviewed for a job. I was the recruiter that put me in front of them, required me to be on camera, and the two people I interviewed with would not get on the air.
Oh my gosh.
I did not take the job because of that. Like, that told me what I was like, if you don't have, you're gonna force me to be on camera, but you're not on camera to interview me, like, this is super weird. What?
Yeah, big sign.
What are you doing while you're interviewing me, like?
Yeah, so what he said was he did an interview for a job. I know you've had your job for a while, so this is like a year ago too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they made him be on camera, and then they didn't be on camera. What, so that's an answer, like, how can you tell if someone respects you? They did not show you any respect, right? How else can you tell if someone respects you?
If they're involving you, like, if, you know, say, me and you are having a discussion and you're just talking at me, you know, you lead people with questions, you're gonna find out a lot more about somebody if you're leading with questions, and that shows me that you respect me enough to ask me questions. And it'll also tell you that if I'm confident enough to sit there and answer those questions with you, so it's a.
Yeah, in communication.
give and take.
He said that they ask him questions instead of just talking at him, right? And they care what you have to say in response to the questions, not just like, okay, check. I've had recruiters like that. Long time. So when I started in tech, there weren't coding boot camps at all. There were computer science programs, but you'd get recruiters with a checklist of tech questions that a person wrote for them. It's like, what's the difference between a class and an interface? And you tell them, and they're quiet for a little while. And then they ask you the next question. I'm not getting listened to, right? Some other guy is gonna tell me if I didn't feel respected in that process at all, right? Does it matter how whether somebody, is there a difference between whether somebody does respect you and whether you feel respected?
Yeah.
That's a difference. Tell me about, does one matter more than the other?
Feelings also determine, I mean, feelings are so subjective to the person. I can listen to you, and somebody else can listen to you, and they can have a completely different feeling than I do.
Yeah,
So it's a very subjective.
feelings are very subjective, and you were saying they're both important. Which to me, goes back to responsibility then. If it's subjective, if how you feel after we interact is in your world, and I want you to feel respected, that's big responsibility. I need to work out what makes you feel respected, and then with you, I gotta do that, and with you, I gotta do that, and with you, I gotta do that, and they're not the same, right? It's a simple thing of remembering people's names. So Larry? Yes. Yeah, Jason. Okay, good. The newbie, the ones I'm just meeting. I don't know, he's not gonna feel respected. What is it? Mark, see, I 2 out of 3. That's a failure. A failure in performance. Yeah. So that's another thing you can own it, right? When you don't respect somebody, because you're gonna mess up, right? What are you gonna do? How do you show them that you care about that? Right? That they're valuable as a human being.
You listen, and then if you're transactional versus truly fair, some people are very transactional, and you can pick up, they just want something. Yeah.
That's it. They're here.
I mean, and at times that's just is what it is, but you can still be respectful or listen, or just be fully transparent, like, hey, I need this, and this is,
Yeah.
but just some people are just grimy, just transactional.
There's something disrespectful about the pest control guy who knocks on your door. That you're saying? I don't know. I'm asking that one because I had talked to him and invite him in for water, but I'm not buying his pest control.
I respect that they have a job to do, and maybe if a spider just ran across my living room, my wife would probably be like, let's get this.
Yeah.
But it's how, if you tell them no or not now, it's what happens after.
It's how it goes.
It's the listening aspect.
The
Did you
listening
hear what I said,
Yeah. Well, in a new position, what you're gonna do with that is not only listen, like you're going back to what people think you do and what you want to be doing in the company. So there's an element of being willing to make commitments you weren't expecting when they come up. Where I'm finding out from you that there's this little project over here that everybody keeps ignoring, and you just gave me all this work to do. So I don't know how I'm gonna juggle it all, but I mean, I remember you mentioned that to me. Like, and I'm not thinking it's even a test. Probably a lot of times it's accidental. But when I listen, I notice that there's all this stuff that nobody's doing. That if I volunteer, will make a difference and it'll make the place a little bit better. You're not gonna know about that if you're just like, okay, give me my list. All right, I'm writing my task list down. I'm done with my work. It's 3:30. All right, nothing left to do. I can watch Netflix. How many of you are gonna be in remote jobs, do you think? Full remote? You're committed to that, or you just guessing? You are already in one. What's your name?
Dan.
Dan Williams, yep. And Mark?
Yeah, I've done remote work, in the past.
Okay, and you're wanting to get one that's remote?
I mean, I don't have a problem coming in to a place that I need to be, but I would love to work with them.
Yeah, that would be a big value in a new position.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, makes sense. Yeah, so when in a company you have different challenges for that. You're not gonna, because you're not hearing the buzz at the water cooler about what's going wrong around here and what you can do about it when you're remote. So you got to find the communication channels, even if it's partial remote, because not everybody's in the office at the same time then. Partial remote companies are weird because, and I mean, I have one, so it's a confession. But like you got 2 people who are always in the office together, and then one who's there sometimes, right? And then you got a Slack, but you've also got a Teams for this one client. And then you've got email, but you really have 3 different emails, right? That's remote work. Then there's the pull requests. I hate pull requests. We'll talk about that on another talk. But remote work kind of makes pull requests necessary because you're not sitting there next to each other going, what are you doing with that now? Right? And it's like, let me show you, right? There's a cooperation, right? That you have to seek out with remote work because it's not just in your lap, right? It's not just around you all the time. I did a kind of programming in 2006. We did it on purpose. We were all on site at Hertz. You've driven by the yellow building. Used to have programmers in it, not anymore. A lot of the guys I knew from Sonic came from Hertz, and actually the CTO of the health department, Leslie Weaver, came from Hertz. I met her at Hertz. She used to be part of these Techlahoma groups. She's a little busy now. we were all at our different cubes on our different teams, and we're like, we want to do extreme programming. You guys heard of extreme programming? It's not remote. You go get a conference room and you make it okay with the facilities people, and you move all the tables. And you make a row of tables in the middle, and you set up all the workstations with 2 chairs, 1 desk, right? Because we're gonna pair program. And you put a board up on the wall, and you put all the cards on the board in like to do, doing, done, right? And there's a stack, and you get together once every week in the morning, which is what we did anyway. 2-hour meeting, what are we gonna do this week? Goes up in the to-do board. We put a cowbell, so that when you move something to done, bing, right? It's a little intense. I'm just, we had core hours. We went from 10 to 3 core hours, because we acknowledged we had some introverts, and we had a little room next to it that they could go in and work alone, but it really didn't work too well to work alone when everybody's working together on stuff. So nobody owned a task by themselves ever. It was our task. And we'd go take one off, we'd put it in doing, and we'd look for a pair. Who's gonna pair with me on this one? It was the most effective way I've ever worked. We got so much done. And
Imagine how much you learn.
oh my gosh, oh yeah, our skills just right into each other. And the product owner, the lady who read the user stories, is looking for a job now, by the way. She's the best one I've ever had. We can talk to each other about that. She is in the room with us. So we're working on a requirement and we're not quite sure about something. It's like, hey, Deborah. And she walks over and we do it right now. So it was intense, but it was, so I'm always looking for how do we be effective the way we actually work. So, and I'm willing to transform an entire conference room, but if half of my team is in New Jersey and the other half is in, right now, I got one in Tennessee, I got one in Colorado. I can't do that, right? So what can I do, right? How do I look for ways to work more tightly with people and cooperate? Because I'm on a team, I'm not a solo samurai, right? We're working on something together, right? So you look for that, it's that cooperation, and I got way off of respect, didn't I? It's more in the space of performance, I guess. Actually, there was times, I mean, especially you're pairing with somebody and they do something stupid. How do you show them you respect them, right? You ever try to fix a bug someone else wrote? Anybody fix one of yours? It can feel good or bad, is all I'm saying, because people care about their craft, right? And so I walk in, there was a guy, his name was Rob, and see, I think this is gonna work better if I show how I disrespected the guy. So we were doing test-driven development where that's what was, and actually I was on the education team as well as, it was a halftime class, halftime work together. So I was showing them how to do test-driven development, and he had written this really long thing that worked, had no tests at all. And I had been fostering a practice in my own code, and I hadn't made anybody else do it yet, where if I could run the tests, all green, and I could delete some code and the tests were still green, I would delete it. So I sat down next to him and I saw all this code and I could tell from the tests, he didn't write any. And so I said, okay, delete. And he goes, I don't know how long he worked on that. So I didn't get to work with him for like a week. So we cleaned it up because we had this other meeting called retrospective where we would all have a safe place to say, this is what worked and this is what didn't work. And dude, it did not work when you deleted all my code. Like he felt free to share that with me, right? But you show people you respect them by caring about what they care about, right? And at that point, he didn't care about the testing. He was working on a project. He wanted to get it done, and he had done it, you know? And I hit that delete key, and we didn't have source control set up yet on that project. It was gone. I didn't know he didn't have it committed. We were also doing Git, right? Well, it was not Git, it was Subversion at the time. You guys ever heard of Subversion? Oh, you don't care. It gets better. Like, yeah. It's 28 years. Most of that is not useful anymore. So I want to talk to you about your work. This is the kind of the reputation is made out of language. It's made out of memories. People know you by what you did and what you said you would do, right? So your word starts, at least this is my understanding of it, your word starts with what you said you would do on time, right? And if you're either going to keep your word or you're not going to keep your word, right? But that's what you're keeping or not keeping. I said I would be here to give a talk at noon. If I walked in at 12:08, I would not have been keeping my word, right? So what am I going to do about that, right? But don't want to. It's insufficient. This is not all that your word is. Your word is also what you know you should do. And as it was meant to be done and on time. So it's easy to fall into the trap of, hey, I never told you I was gonna get this thing done by Friday, but you know very well you're supposed to do this thing by Friday. Turn your timesheet in every Friday on time. I didn't say I was gonna turn it in this week on Friday. Come on, right? Your word is more than just what you explicitly write down and say to people you're gonna do. It's also what you know you're supposed to do. And it's also, I'm gonna keep raising the bar here. I got more bars after this one. It's what others expect of you, even if you didn't tell them you would do it. You guys did not expect me to walk in here in a bathing suit. Right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is like extremely important because like when you give someone your word, and some people believe, you know, like if you don't have your word, you don't have anything. But this like hits home for me personally because if I had someone give me their word on things they work on for the past couple months, and then recently they decide they're not gonna do it. And it's like, that's 2 months in a startup that I knew this task needed to be done. I was relying on you to do it. You committed multiple times that you're gonna do it. And it's like, I could have been looking for someone else to complete this thing. You gave me your word.
Yeah.
And that hurts, that stings bad.
I really appreciate you adding the story because I'm not only talking about your reputation here. I'm talking about your performance. Your word is how you achieve results. Right? Because if you're out, if your word's out, the results are, it's like, this is really about integrity is the completeness of a system. If my car is missing a wheel, it's not going to drive very well, right? And if I tell you I'm going to do 6 things and I do 5, our team's not going to get our project done, right? So your word is all the things that it takes, right, for you to participate. And you had somebody's word just like, right, and it's a startup, and startups. I love startups, but not all of you are going to go work for a startup. How many think they might work for a startup? How many are looking to work for a big company? This? Okay, what kind of company you guys, you don't care? How many don't care? They just want a tech job? Okay, okay, I'm trying to peg it down. Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, when I started my company, I did in the first 4 years, I had 5 jobs. And every time I got 10% raise, so I had figured it out back then. But I tried big companies and little companies. I was in Washington, DC. I tried federally related companies and tiny little private companies. So yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to build a little bit on
Yeah.
that stuff. So like the word that, you know, hey, I'm gonna do this, that then actually became my words when I was explaining to users that we're working on this, here's it's coming. That's
Yeah.
when I was explaining to potential investors or current investor, like here's what we're working on, here's what we're doing. So then someone not following through on their word with me, because when they gave me their word, I started giving other people my word through their word, that this is happening. And then it's like, hey, now I'm trying to figure it out and save face and be like, hey, I gave you my word. I'm still going to figure it out. But like someone that I was relying on that was working on it, like all that information was true.
Yeah.
And now it's stopped.
Yeah.
So it's like I have a startup called Pickup.Earth. You know about it, of course. And we have users.
Yeah.
And everyone, we ran a pickup game last night, and everyone's like, we're really excited for the pickup map, and we see all these things that are coming, like we're so excited, this is gonna be awesome, and it's like, well, that pickup map was what this person gave me their word on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, it's still coming, you know, like, and we're working on it, but it's like, now I gotta find the right person to actually.
So he's sharing in his startup, Pickup.Earth,
What is it?
Pickup.Earth.
What we do is we facilitate pickup sports across planet Earth, so starting with pickup basketball.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And there's his point about word is that if you give your word to somebody, if they rely on you, if they trust you, they're gonna then make promises too, based on what you promised. And then you drop your ball, we drop our ball, and we drop our ball, customers are impacted. And where does the money come from to pay your salary, right? It all adds up, right? You're a part of something that you care about. If you're working at a place that you've chosen to work and you care about what they're doing, you know, what you promise, it may seem like a little thing, but a lot could be resting on it, right? Yeah,
I was just gonna say, I mean, to me, that's a bit of a cautionary tale where if you're giving your word and your integrity stands on something, I would not feel comfortable if it wasn't something I didn't control 100%.
yeah,
So I would just navigate that carefully. I mean, just because if a few of those slip ups happen, and like, maybe it's not your fault, but if your clients are looking at and seeing, hey, this guy keeps promising us these things and it's not happening, like, that will reflect on you, so.
Yeah.
I feel like you gotta be careful.
Dan? Yeah, so Dan said, it's dangerous. I'm hearing that it's dangerous when you make a promise that you can't control. You give your word for something that others are on the hook for. So, I also agree that I feel the weight of that, right? I also feel the opportunity though. Like, I can't do big things alone, right? So if we create an environment where people value their word, we are able to do bigger things together, but you got to be able to lean on your buddy. My brother's a Navy diver. And there's a guy at the bottom of the rope. That's what he calls it, in the ocean, who cannot live alone, obviously, because he's in the bottom of the ocean, right? The only way he lives is the guys at the top of the rope take care of him. If their word breaks, that guy's done, right? You can't go to the bottom of the ocean without cooperation. It takes people relying on each other's word.
See, that's interesting to me, because I'm 100% self-taught, never really worked with anybody. So it's gonna be interesting to see that dynamic, that way.
Oh, you've been working alone a long time? Only worked alone.
I only build projects by myself.
Welcome to the fold, brother.
Yeah. Well, just to clarify, I'm just saying you have to be careful what you are committing to,
Yeah.
especially with other people, right? Like, but even for yourself, like, if there's some bad bug and it's like, I guarantee I'm gonna get it done this weekend, but you don't even know what's going on yet, that's a risk.
Yeah.
Right? But you can't say like, I'm gonna put 8 hours in Sunday and I'm gonna do everything I can to finish this thing. So like, I'm just saying, like,
What you commit to.
upheld your integrity without necessarily like guaranteeing the farm.
I love that you said that, Dan, because what you're promising, you can change the nature of the promise
Yes.
rather than the outcome. So you don't know for sure you're gonna fix the bug over the weekend, but you got 8 hours on Sunday. So I'm gonna work on it on 8 hours on Sunday, and I'm gonna promise you that I'll tell you something on Sunday too. We had, you guys, were you anybody affected by the CrowdStrike outage last 2 weeks ago? Wow. The state of Oklahoma was. I found it's 8,200 computers didn't work.
What was it?
The CrowdStrike outage was if you have a certain security software by I'm not trying to bash CrowdStrike, but they really failed in performance. Many millions of computers all over the country did not work on Monday morning when people came into work because of them. So the guys at the state of Oklahoma that I go to breakfast with, one of those names is Greg, and I only met him like 10 times maybe, and he wasn't at breakfast. We usually go 6 o'clock on Fridays, because that's when it started, was on a Friday. They were busy. I found out on Monday that he committed that between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., he was sending an hourly update to all the leadership of the state of Oklahoma. He couldn't commit to fix the problem, but he could commit to tell them what was going on every hour for the entire weekend, well, during 7 to 7, right? So he worked 24 hours over the weekend, right? Just because it would take him 20 minutes to go find out what was actually happening, and then 20 minutes to write the update properly for this, because it was all the way up to the CTO of the state of Oklahoma that was getting his update, right? And then he has 20-minute break. And he has to start over again for the next hour. That's what Greg did. He took responsibility and he made a promise he could keep. And it wasn't a low bar. He said, right, 12 hours of updates all weekend. But I really like that, Dan, you can make a achievable promise that you have control over. Yeah, very good.
Right, that's a good one. Like outages, I handle communications for outages. I can't commit to it because half the time you don't know, one, you're in the research phase of what doing it. And so the only thing you can't commit to is you have a report every X amount, of time on a cadence, and we'll communicate early and often, and we'll, do the retrospective. I just lay out the whole process of,
Yeah,
you'll get these communications so we figure it out. Then once we know what the problem is, they will tell you an estimate to get there, but that's just an estimate. And
Oh, so you don't only commit to a frequency, you also commit to the phases that it's gonna go
Yeah,
through.
I have a whole like just communication methodology.
Yeah.
Like, one, I'm gonna communicate until we know what the problem is, and then once we, basically the milestones.
Yeah.
For the phase gate.
So they can understand from your communication, we've advanced to the next stage.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, because, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you have people above you, especially, in tech, that are, because sooner or later, those go out to business units that are non-technical, and so you communicate also in a language that they understand, you're not gonna start talking
Yeah,
the super tech stuff, you.
you have to translate
your
it.
Audience and.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, because they're frustrated, and so then you got to hit those cadences,
Yeah.
because that's all you can control.
Yeah, and you do.
And it's
Yeah.
special language too, we're attempting to, I mean, it's choose your words wisely and all those kind of things as well.
I got more, I'm raising the bar a little more. I'm also watching my time. So, so your word is not just all of that, it's also what you stand for as a person. Right? Because nobody might expect of you to do something you think you should be doing. So you got a word to yourself. Right? And I have had, and it only took me 28 years, I've had 5 or 6 major times that I needed to speak up that nobody was going to speak up. And I needed to speak up. Yeah, Dan.
What's an example?
Let's think of one of them. I lost a job over this one. I had a client, Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers was our client in New York City. I was flying there. My kids were at home, working on it was a sudden project, found out about a week ahead of time. And, we had decided on a series of quality gates that started with units test passing, and then it had UAT, and then we had production deployment. And we were going through that every weekend, every Friday before we would get on an airplane. So it wasn't really late because I had to get on an airplane. So it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when you had to be done with that. And otherwise you're not going to production. Well, the users needed it in production and there were test failures. And the project manager, I was on the call, but the project manager was leading the call. And I was optional on the call. I was joined because my flight was late enough that day. That was it, right? And he was going to go to production. And I looked and I saw that their tests were all passing, but there were 12 less tests than last week. So I go look, and he's just having the meeting, moving forward with the production deployment. And I go look in the source code, because in Git, you can see a history, right? And I see a bunch of comments on a bunch of unit tests. And I'm like, and I go to the developer because it wasn't the project manager. I'm like, why did I comment it out? Oh, the tests weren't passing, and it's probably a problem with the tests, not the code, which is always the argument, right? Right. And it might be, but how do you know unless you fix them, right? And so I spoke up on the call. I said, hang on a second. I think we need to uncomment this test. And he real quick says, we're not uncommenting. We had a meeting last night, which I was there. I was on site last night. Well, I wasn't in this meeting. So he knew what I was going to say, right? And he says, we agreed last night, we're going to uncomment the test till the next release. And I said, we need to cancel and I'm in front of the client. And I said, we need to cancel the go live because these tests are failing. And I don't know all of the politics that were at play, but that was really bad for the project manager somehow. And he got to stay on the project and I didn't somehow. So but I don't regret it. I mean, sometimes, and I just picked one that came to mind. There's going to be I can't tell you what the moments are going to be, but you're going to stand for something and no one else is going to speak up unless you do. So the question is, are you going to do it? Right. And that's your word too, because people are going to know what you stand for from those moments.
And I think when you're going, and you probably speak to this, into your next job, if you said you got fired from.
It was a contract. They can tell me in 5 seconds, goodbye. Yeah. Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
if your boss or whoever's asking, what happened, you say, well, I stood up for something being wrong, and I would do it again.
I always question it. I don't know if I missed something. I might have made the wrong call, but you got to make the best call you can. Yeah. So I'm not even telling you I was right from that situation. I don't know, but.
This is making me think of I think it's an Einstein quote. But it's, take it with a grain of salt or believe it or don't believe it, but it's like the world will not be destroyed by evil, but by those who watch evil being done and do nothing.
Yeah.
So, stand for something or fall for everything.
Stand for something or fall for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that, I mean, if anyone is working for a contracting company, which I do a lot of as well, I feel like you're faced with that sort of scenario a lot compared to, you know, if you work for ComSource Mutual or someone directly, because you kind of have a loyalty to your contract company, but the client, you know, it's almost like you have situations where it's like, this might not be best for them, but I've got to do this because that's what they want. Say that happens often.
It does happen often, and I have been in contracting since a lot, more than half of that 28 years. And I know a lot of people who will do real gray area stuff in their contracting companies around, well, I'm waiting for a build to run for this client, so I'm gonna work on this other client stuff, and I can put an hour on both timesheets. And I stay far away from that stuff, man. Contracting it gives a lot of opportunity for people to be real loose with the rules. So, yeah, the 2-layer company thing can be done with integrity, and it takes a lot of this. What do you stand for? Yeah. Yeah. I got another layer. It's not even all the way there yet. Ready? This is the last one I got on here anyway. Ready? It's not just what you stand for, it's what you're not standing for that you should be. And it's not just, it's your ethics, it's your morality, and it's the laws of the land, and you have to deal with all three, even though they don't match. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you there's an easy answer. I'm saying there's an important problem.
And sometimes you can do the right thing and it not work out well.
Yep.
I mean, I've been fired before for doing the right thing legally, ethically, and by my own morals, you know. That I'd be willing to look my family and my kids in the face and I got like a really good job financially, horrible job, but you know.
Yeah.
But you did the right thing, you know.
There's clients I won't take.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to finish with integrity as a way of life. Integrity as a way of life. And it starts when I put in the slide when you give your word. I just mean when your word is out there. There's a bunch of people out there that have your word that you've given and that you stand for and that they expect of you, and it's all out there. And what are you going to do about it? Well, I got really bad news. You're not always going to keep your word. I kind of think it's life. That's the gap, right? Is you can make choices about what you're going to do when you realize, when you're driving to that meeting and the traffic backs up, right? You know that there's that moment where you go, I'm not going to do it. Whatever the commitment is. So what do?
Communicate early and often. Because you usually see it coming. You know, like I tell my team, I was like, if you see it coming, we're not sweeping under the rug. We just talk about it because we can crush it by adding more people, more resources, right? Or I can readjust the messaging up front, you know, before it happens.
Communicate to whom really early and often?
Your stakeholders, I mean, because that can vary depending on what it is. It could be your management, it could be, you know, like I tell my team, I don't want surprises, you know, things like that. So then really it's whoever your stakeholders are, who's gonna be impacted, you know, and that could be.
Who's going to be impacted? And that gets bigger and bigger, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So I agree. I think you become a lot higher integrity by being proactive with your communication.
And you also have to balance your community, like if I'm the developer, I'm not communicating to the CEO, which probably, no, but.
I've done that.
You know, like you communicate at the proper level so that they get the right, you know, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of decision making to who you tell
Yeah.
what, when.
It might seem like the end of the world to you, and the CEO's like, right, talk to your manager, right? Yeah.
There's different
Yeah.
tiers and filter and things like.
And you might give really incorrect information. You might think it's a much worse impact than it really is too. So you go to the CEO and you know, my team and my boss have just totally dropped the ball, man, we're gonna lose $10 million. But it's not really true, right? You just know you're part of the world. Yeah, I agree with, I think it's so but you gotta know, you gotta work out who needs to hear about it when your word is out, right? And that could be all the layers of word, right? You know, you catch yourself that you have been doing something that you don't stand for, or you haven't been standing for something. Who does that affect? And then communicate. That's so what else can you do besides communication?
Take responsibility.
What?
Take responsibility.
Take responsibility, meaning like,
You know, if there's something you can do to, change the course or to get ahead of it, you know, whatever it is, depending on
So take responsibility. So you're looking for an action you can take related to whatever your word was.
I tell my team too, like, don't just come with a problem, have an idea of the solution, you might not understand the full solution, but not just complaints and problems, it's like. And there's a time and place for that, sometimes we have a Vegas session, you just wanna get it off your chest, and we're cool, and you know, like.
Yeah.
You just wanna vent, cool, call it out, but we can't just sit around and gripe, or we can't, problem, I don't know, it's just broken, it's, you're the expert or the person, like, whatever. Why is it broken? Let's reverse engineer that. How can we unbreak it? Or what are some potential ideas? Or if you don't know, who would know? You know, it's just.
I like that you're not doing it alone at this point. You're looking at ways that we can.
Oh, yeah.
So my failure or my word being out I can ask the people around me to be, hey, what can we do about it? And maybe nothing, maybe they're gonna leave it on you, but you could ask, right?
Well, you'd be surprised though. Like even
Yeah.
like I managed a six function team.
Mhm.
And so we have a Salesforce administrator that would get on with a software developer. That totally different skill sets, but it's still an analytical, still a troubleshooting. And it is a really small team, so I had one, maybe two of each person on that team.
Yeah.
And so, but the one person could just have their nose so stuck on the wall, and they're stressed out, and they just can't see the
Yeah.
forest of the tree. And then you just get another person that's like, I don't know anything really about your domain, but troubleshooting is troubleshooting, it's all ones and zeros. Have you thought of this?
Yeah.
And as you say, no idea is a dumb idea right now, this is just broken, let's just.
Let's go,
Throw some ideas out,
Yeah.
and you'd be surprised just to get 5, 6, 10 different objective opinions.
People love to jump in and sort out a mess, don't they?
Okay.
Like, hey, come help me with
It's a
that. Yeah.
Well, and if you don't, you probably end up on proof.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm gonna take it to you guys. Okay, I'm gonna ask everybody to participate unless you're really uncomfortable, okay? But if that's fine, if you aren't, you can give me like a thumbs down. I want to know from each of you. And let's see, I'm gonna let Tulsa listen and you guys can be last, okay? Then Dancy and Lindsay and Tommy, I see you guys. I'll let you be last. We're gonna go around the room and say, what are your next steps with your tech career? Some of you may be going into a tech job, but what are your next steps about your, based on this kind of soft skills stuff? So I pick Kimberly, you wanna go first or, yeah, you go first.
My next step is just to be looking for my next client, so I freelance, I have a client now, and it could last a while, but then like, the next client could be
Looking for your next client. Do you normally have one at a
one
time?
or two. That's tough.
Okay. Jason,
My next steps are just to wrap up, the web app I'm working on right now with two of my roommates, and just to rinse and repeat that until I find a job in the next few years.
you're finishing a web app. And then you might do another one, but you're already in the job search now. And okay, yeah. What's your name? Michael? Next step is keep on learning what? Coding. Great, yeah. What's your name?
Brian.
Ryan?
Right.
Brian. Good to see you again.
I guess mine, so I have a big project, kind of mentoring a junior dev on that, so keeping him on track and helping him out. Keep the project.
I think I know which Brian. Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah. What's your name? Larry. Oh.
You knew it, you knew it. I'm still working a current job, but I want to continue learning, and then I'm gonna start my job search, very soon.
Are you in a tech job now?
No, I'm in the Air Force right now.
Yeah, so you're finishing your current job and you're gonna keep on, and how soon is that transition?
That'll be in June is when I'm start looking, like, that's when I need a new job, so I'm gonna start looking for that.
Okay, wow. You are a planner. Yes. I like that. Let's go to the hall and come back. Jonas?
My next steps, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
No, the next time something comes up when we're building something and it's, I don't just, if something feels out of place and I don't agree with it, I'll speak up and raise those concerns.
Speak up and raise those concerns. Yeah. Thanks. What's your name?
Justin, sorry, I came a little late.
Hi, Justin. What's your next steps?
Well, currently at my, current job, currently twice. At my current job, I'm finishing up two big projects. One of them is like a KPI performance report card, and then the other one is an executive level dashboard that shows medical performance for certain departments. So those are my two biggest projects I'm finishing up pretty soon. After that, I have a couple more smaller projects that are coming up. Sorry, maybe it's too detailed. It's supposed to be like more open-ended, like career. I didn't really know what the.
That's okay.
I don't know, for my career role, I'm currently working as a data analyst. I actually want to go become a data scientist.
Okay.
So maybe develop some machine learning, freshen up. I'm currently doing NLP and a little bit of AI, but eventually I wanna get to that stage.
Data science. Good. Why am I blanking? You just emailed you this morning. Yeah, I guess it's in my drafts folder.
Yeah, it's a weekend. Neil.
Neil.
You're good, you're good. I have a new employee starting on Tuesday. And so just really getting them in the culture to keep the good thing going. You know, it's always throwing a new person into an existing team is. You know,
Gotta onboard somebody.
Well, you hope they fit, you hope they're right fit, you need to make them a fit, yeah, it's a lot.
How big is the team?
5.
Yeah.
So it'll be 6, and then it's a dotted line employee, it's a weird.
Yeah.
Thing where I'm getting a BA on a dev team, but they don't wanna assign it to me, cause then BA teams will want developers and all that, and so they're basically giving it to me, but it's dotted line to another for.
Yeah.
Corporate structure, and so.
It's good though. You're getting a BA.
Yeah, dedicated.
Dedicated, yeah.
And so it's also kind of a revolutionary change on the company to give other people. Kind of a tiger team versus this whole.
Yeah, cross-functional
shared
team.
center of excellence. You know, I gotta get, pull from benches, and so giving a dedicated person.
Neat.
It's never happened, and so, and I have a lot of seasoned people who've been there a while, so I have to make sure that the recipe works together. So-
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, it gets on,
And then you deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting. Thanks, Neil. What's your name?
Nate.
Nate. Nathaniel, which one?
My next steps, I think, would be grow my current position, maybe build on my reputation at work.
Yeah. You like where you work?
Yes, I
I can see that. Yeah. Where do you work?
I do production planning for data center cooling manufacturer.
Wow, production planning for a data center cooling manufacturer. That's a cool problem. Yeah. What's your name?
I'm Annabelle.
Hi, Annabelle.
I mean, my next step is actually starting my job on Monday. but-
Yeah. Starting her job on Monday. Yeah. What are you gonna do on your first day?
First day is like, everyone is just like getting like 8 hours of orientation.
Yeah.
And then that's actually 3 days of it. And then
Okay.
Thursday, I think I start with my team.
What do you work?
Swag at Air Force Base at the Tinker Software Engineering Group.
Oh, Software Engineering Group at Swag. That's a cool name. Man, that's a cool team name. At the Tinker Air Force Base. Wow. And there's a big group starting together.
Well, I think like the whole base.
Oh.
Like everyone's starting on the base, and
Mhm.
like janitors and like everyone has the same orientation, then you have a different,
Yeah.
like, your actual job orientation later.
This is not your first tech job, or it is?
No, it is.
Yeah, what a day.
Yeah.
How did they schedule this?
I just moved here, so it's like a meetup, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's perfect.
Well, great to have you, Annabelle.
Yeah.
What's your name? Kyler? Yeah.
I'm also starting
At Swag? Okay.
Media, they were looking for a UX designer.
Yeah.
5 to 8 year experience. I applied anyways, and they're like, you know what? How about we just have you like contracted with us, right? And have a little internship for 90 days. It's what I need to do when I get here.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah.
That's what we're really looking for.
Kyler's starting at High Five Media on Monday for a 90-day internship. That's so perfect. Well, you'll do great. Yeah. All right. We'll go to Brandy.
No, what's next for me? Probably quit my job, fly away to Guatemala. Travel a little bit.
This is my wife talking. She's saying she's gonna quit her job. How about you, Daphne? That's my sister.
But I think I have started a new role, in the last 90 days at my current firm and in financial services. And I think my next steps are start using my voice a little bit more. I think, that's.
She's gonna use her voice more. Yeah. Josh,
Keep on keeping on, keep working on my company and doing what needs to be done, so.
Yeah.
I always appreciate coming to events where you learn a little bit of everything, you know, we're all lifelong learners.
Yeah.
So no one knows everything about one thing, much less everything about everything, so.
Yeah. Lifelong learning and stay in the course.
Literally take the next step, one step at a time.
Next step, one step at a time. Yeah. 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 I thought you were gonna say, you got a lot of ambitious tech people in here. You could say you're looking for talent if you were looking for talent.
Maybe one of the many.
Dan,
My name is Dan Williams. I guess next steps would just be trying to take what we've learned here and making sure I'm actually applying it week by week. And then I also have a small software development company, so acquiring new contracts, specifically if I can hire people in Oklahoma, would be the next thing.
so you're looking to hire or sell or both?
Looking to acquire contracts and then fill positions.
Yeah, okay. Remember her next step? I'm just saying. Mark.
Good job. So my next step is, I'm actually working on a Next.js React web app. It's a YouTube tutorial, but I should finish it today, I think. And then network with you guys. I am looking for a job. I'm also a real estate investor. I say I'm a real estate investor turned into a programmer because I've wanted to do so many things with real estate and programming, and I'm starting to mesh those things together. And I'm looking for a place to call home for a couple of years and, you know, make some decent money. And I've always lived, you know, high paycheck to no paycheck at times, you know, a little bit of, you know, I may make $20,000 this month, but the next 2 months, and you know, we may not get closed. And so I'm looking for some stability for my family and looking for a place where I can really learn and grow, and just kind of be a leech on somebody who's got 25 years in the business, and just kind of suck that information off them and give as much value as possible to them.
Yeah,
Those are my next steps.
got it. What's your name? Ava. Ado? Adom? Aram, I'm sorry, Aram.
Just wanted to practice what I've learned in the past few months and, you know, gain the confidence of my tech job.
So you're not applying immediately? You're gonna practice? Are you building like a tech, more projects?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds similar. Are you on one of the teams?
Yeah.
Oh, separate teams. Ooh, do they compete? I love competitions. I'm sorry. Okay, so you're on, what is your project right now?
Find out what they want to do for date night.
Okay.
Something simple.
Is it like a dating app?
No.
No. A night out. So for like, she and I could go do something using your app. Okay.
Like it gives you suggestions.
Huh? That's cool. Yeah. What's your project?
Modernize a work process right now. And also use like paper request forms. I'm trying to apply that.
Okay.
Make it easier for me ultimately.
For yourself.
That's what I'll be doing.
Yeah, cool. All right. Dancy.
My next steps would probably be to show what I can do to my current company so that I can feel more valuable.
Where do you work?
I'm a contractor for Cisco. I'm a Jira admin.
Nice. Yeah, big company.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. All right. And Tommy.
Hi, and good morning, everybody. So Uh, my next steps will be to, polish myself more in coding, find my first job. I worked when I was back home, so I'm originally from Bulgaria. I worked for Apple. We did Apple Maps in Europe. Then I arrived here, got the first job I could. So I'm working as a supervisor in a hotel. And now I'm trying, to get a education from here. So it's easier when you have something from here than rather than, somewhere abroad. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I got some
Okay.
Python experience and JavaScript right now.
Okay, Java and JavaScript. Yeah, and you're a part of the OK Coders program.
Yes, sir.
All right, graduation next Friday?
Yes, sir.
Thursday.
No, it's Friday. Is it Friday? Oh. I was wrong.
I was worried I might be able to make it Friday because I'm flying here. So I don't know when my flight lands, but Thursday was a no, so that's good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for participating. I hope it was made some contribution to your work life, and maybe you can all make connections with each other, and it was worth coming on Saturday.
Yeah, really quick before everyone heads out, Zach, let me remind everyone, graduation on Friday.